my wife said again. My ex appreciated me more than you ever will. I replied, then maybe you should go back to him, because I'm done pretending this doesn't hurt. The words left my mouth before I could soften them. Naomi Parker froze in the middle of the kitchen, her hand still wrapped around a ceramic mug. The faint clink of it touching the marble counter sounded louder than it should have. Her eyes shifted toward me, not shocked, not angry, just measuring, like she was deciding whether I had finally crossed a line she never believed I would. You don't mean that, she said quietly. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. I do, I said, and for the first time in months, I didn't look away from her. The sunlight filtered through the wide glass windows of our kitchen, casting long shadows across the polished floor. This house had always felt like a reward, a symbol of everything we built together. But standing there, it felt like a stage where something had been slowly breaking for a long time. You always overreact, Daniel, Naomi said, her voice calm, almost rehearsed. It wasn't the first time she had said his name. Her ex, Ethan Caldwell, a name that had quietly taken up space in our marriage like an uninvited guest who never left. At least he noticed the little things, she added, almost as if she couldn't help herself. Something inside me tightened. Not rage, not even jealousy, just a deep, exhausting weight. I notice, I said. You just don't care the same way, she replied. That sentence landed heavier than anything else, because it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, and simple things are harder to argue with. I walked toward the sink, turning on the faucet just to have something to do. Water rushed loudly, filling the silence she left behind. Tell me something, I said, still facing away from her. When you say that, what are you actually asking for? She didn't answer immediately. I could feel her watching me. I'm asking for effort, she finally said. I'm asking for you to see me the way he did. There it was. Not just comparison. Expectation. Expectation shaped by someone who wasn't even here anymore. I turned off the water and dried my hands slowly. I'm married to you, I said, turning back to her. I build a life with you. I show up every single day. And somehow I'm still competing with a memory. Her jaw tightened slightly. You're not competing, she said. It just feels like you stopped trying. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt absurd. Trying, I repeated. Naomi, I work 12-hour days so we can live like this. I come home and listen to you. I support everything you want to do. And the only thing you keep bringing up is a man who left you. She flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. He didn't leave, she said quickly. It just didn't work. The correction felt important to her, more important than anything I had just said, and that told me more than I wanted to know. The rest of the day passed in a strange, quiet distance. We moved around each other like strangers who knew the layout of the same house. No shouting, no slamming doors, just silence that felt heavier than any argument. That night, I sat in my office, staring at a blank screen. Emails unread, work untouched. My mind replayed her words over and over again. My ex appreciated me more than you ever will. It wasn't the first time she said it, but it was the first time I didn't dismiss it. Because now I realized something I had been avoiding. She didn't just remember him. She compared me to him. Constantly. And maybe she never stopped loving him. The thought settled into my chest like something permanent. A quiet, uncomfortable truth. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my face. How long had this been going on? How long had I been trying to prove something I was never going to win? The next morning, Naomi acted normal. Too normal. She hummed softly while making coffee. She asked me about my schedule. She even smiled, like the conversation we had never happened. But I couldn't unhear it, and I couldn't unknow what it meant. Daniel, she said, placing a cup in front of me. I was thinking maybe we should go out this weekend. I looked at her. Why? I asked. She hesitated. To reconnect, she said. The words sounded right, but it didn't feel right. Is this because of what you said yesterday? I asked. Her smile faded just a little. I just want things to feel good again, she replied. I nodded slowly, but something in me had shifted, and I wasn't sure if good again was something we could return to. That evening, I got home earlier than usual. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Naomi's car was in the driveway, but I couldn't hear her. I walked through the hallway, my footsteps echoing softly. Then I heard it. Her voice. Faint. Coming from the living room. She was on the phone. I wasn't trying to listen. Not at first. But then I heard a name that made me stop. Ethan. My chest tightened instantly. I stood still, just out of sight. I know, she said softly. It's just complicated. There was a pause. I never said I stopped caring, she added. Something inside me dropped. Not cracked. Not shifted. Dropped. Like a final confirmation of something I had already started to believe. I stepped back quietly. My heart was steady. Too steady. The kind of calm that comes after something breaks cleanly. I walked out of the house without making a sound. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because now I understood something clearly. This wasn't about effort. This wasn't about appreciation. This was about something unfinished. Something she never let go of. And I had been standing in the middle of it the entire time. The next day, I didn't mention what I heard. Neither did she. But I started paying attention. To everything. The way she smiled at her phone. The way she drifted during conversations. The way she seemed more present when she wasn't with me. It wasn't obvious. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. 3 days later, I made a decision. Not emotional. Not impulsive. Just clear. That evening, I came home and found her in the living room. She looked up and smiled. Hey, she said. I walked over and sat across from her. We need to talk, I said. Her expression changed instantly. What's wrong? She asked. I held her gaze. I heard you, I said. Silence. Not confusion. Not denial. Just silence. You were talking to him, I continued. Her lips parted slightly. I can explain, she said quickly. I shook my head. I'm not asking for an explanation. I paused. I'm asking for honesty. Her eyes dropped. It's not what you think, she whispered. That sentence doesn't mean anything anymore, I replied calmly. Another silence. Longer this time. I don't know how to let go, she finally admitted. The words were quiet, but they were real, and that made them heavier. I nodded slowly. Of him, I asked. She hesitated. Of what I felt, she said. I leaned back, absorbing it. Not anger, not shock, just clarity. And where does that leave me? I asked. She looked up at me, her eyes uncertain. I'm trying, she said. I shook my head gently. No, I said. You're holding on. That landed. I could see it in her face. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. I know, I replied. And that's what makes this worse. Because it wasn't intentional. It wasn't malicious. It was just real. And sometimes reality hurts more than anything else. I can't keep competing with a version of love that still exists in your mind, I said. I can't build a life with someone who is still emotionally somewhere else. Her eyes filled slightly. Are you saying you want to leave? She asked. I took a breath. I'm saying I deserve to be with someone who is fully here, I said. And right now, that's not you. The room felt still. Heavy. Final. I don't want to lose you, she said quietly. I looked at her. For a moment, I saw the woman I fell in love with. But I also saw the distance that had grown between us. You already did, I said softly. Not as punishment. Not as revenge. Just as truth. The next few weeks were quiet. Lawyers. Papers. Logistics. No drama. No shouting. Just the slow process of ending something that had already started to fade. The midpoint of everything came unexpectedly. One afternoon, I received a message. From Ethan Caldwell. I stared at his name for a long moment before opening it. I think you deserve to know the truth, it read. That was all. No explanation. No context. Just that. We met the next day at a quiet cafe downtown. He looked exactly how I imagined. Composed. Confident. But there was something else in his eyes. Regret. I didn't know she was still saying those things, he said. I said nothing. I ended things with her years ago for a reason, he continued. She wanted something I couldn't give. That caught my attention. What was that? I asked. He paused. Stability, he said. I was never the kind of man who could build a life the way you did. The irony hit me instantly. She always saw you as the safe choice, he added. And she saw you as something more, I replied. He shook his head slightly. No, he said. She saw me as unfinished. There was a weight to his words. A kind of honesty I didn't expect. She doesn't miss me, he continued. She misses who she was when she was with me. That sentence stayed with me long after the conversation ended, because it reframed everything. It wasn't about him. Not really. It was about her. Her past. Her identity. Her unresolved emotions. And I've been trying to compete with something that wasn't even real anymore. When I got home that night, Naomi was sitting on the couch. She looked up at me, nervous. "Did you talk to him?" she asked. I nodded. "And?" she pressed. "He walked over slowly. He told me the truth," I said. Her face tensed. "What truth?" she asked. I looked at her carefully. "You're not in love with him," I said. She blinked. "You're in love with a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore." Tears filled her eyes instantly. "I don't know who I am without that," she whispered. And that was it. The real problem. Not me. Not him. Her. Her inability to move forward. Her attachment to something that made her feel a certain way. "I hope you figure out," I said gently. "But I can't wait while you do." That was the last real conversation we had. The divorce finalized quietly. No drama. No spectacle. Just signatures and silence. Months later, I found myself sitting alone in a small, quiet apartment. It wasn't as big as the house. It wasn't as polished. But it felt peaceful. For the first time in a long time, there was no comparison. No expectation shaped by someone else. Just space. One evening, as the sun set through the window, I realized something simple. Love isn't about being better than someone from the past. It's about being present. Fully. Honestly. And if that isn't there, nothing else matters. Naomi didn't lose me because I wasn't enough. She lost me because she wasn't here. And that was something no amount of effort could fix.